Okay, Masechta Gitin, again, it's a pretty unbelievable thing. Person gets married, he's Mekadesh to Isha, he's Mekudeshes Loi. I also should mute everybody. Not on my game yet. And you have the idea that a woman, you Mekudeshes to a man, and for whatever reason, usually the Gemara is going to discuss all the way at the end of the Masechta, as they want to get divorced. The only way to go ahead and get divorced is with a document called a get. And the Torah does not call it a get. The word get does not appear in the Torah, but appears in the Torah is the word sefer krisis. In fact, a get is a term that is not limited to a get isha. Shtaris are also called Gitin. But predominantly when the Gemara uses the word get, it means gitei nashim. The Tosfos brings that 12 lines. A get is gematria is 12, 9 and 3, and that's why a get is 12 lines. But the situation that the halachas of Gitin are unique, and they're based upon a few psukim. So I thought it very nice to go as a hakdama, even though it's really jumping into Masechta Gitin, give a hakdama from the Tiferes Yisrael, which is the Yachin, Pshat in the Mishnayos, and he goes through different 10 scenarios that would render a get asa deraisa. 10 scenarios that would render a get asa deraisa, and they're all here on the screen. Okay, so Psichel and Masechta Gitin. I didn't send it out. Is it there? You have it? It should be on the phone. It should be. It's on the phone, guys. You have it.
It was before the alcohol to the event, bringing the wine.
I think they got drunk. I can't find it anymore. Yeah. Five cases of wine.
The menu that was in that side.
9 altogether.
Oh, there's nine cases.
Is
Wine.
Oh, wow.
This is crazy. Anyway. Okay, you got it? You have it. Now, okay, Psichel Masechta Gitin. Kasev b'Torah. It says, "V'hoya im like simsachein be'einav." It says, and the pasuk says this in Parshas Kiseitze. It says if she doesn't find favor in his eyes, why? Because he found an immorality, which is not dafka, as we're going to see. The kasev la sefer krisus, but these are the words that are very, very, very important. The kasev la, he writes to her a sefer krisus, literally a book of cutting. V'nasam biyada, places it in her hand. The shulchan baseline sends it away from his house. So minoyal finon, from this pasuk we learn out asara devarim shepoislim beget midaraisa. These 10 things would possibly get midaraisa, and if she would remarry, that's how you get a mamza. That's how you get mamzerim, guys. You think of mamzerim as only as an illicit union where people are cheating. Kaviyachol, no, it can be simply because you thought you were divorced and you weren't. You thought you were divorced, you received the get, but midaraisa wasn't a good get, so you were never divorced. And then your second marriage, the child is a mamzer, and you can't go back to your first husband. We had to go on Yavamis and Subis, right? So you're really messed up royally. So now, we're going to learn from this pasuk 10, and this is a very good introduction, jumping into the Masechta, instead of speaking about the beginning of the Masechta, which is a very, very unique idea of shlichus, which we'll get into, but this is a much more general idea of what a get is, how it works, what you have to do, and I think it's very, very apropos. So Aleph, imloy simtzachem be'einav, we learn if she doesn't find favor in his eyes, what does the his eyes mean? Melamed shein megarsha rak b'ritzaynai. A get, we all hear these horror stories about a man who refuses to give a get, right? And the woman remains an aguna, literally holding her up for a king's ransom. Why? Because it says in his eyes. That means it has to be beratzain, in his ratzin. If he doesn't give a beratzin, it's not a good get. If it doesn't give a ratzin, it's not a good get. Beis. V'kosav, when it says the word v'kosav, again, this is the lashon of the Torah, v'kosav. Malamed shenim eskareshes rak b'ksav. In other words, if you would say the words of the get verbally to a woman, she would not be divorced. it has to be biksav. So the first one, it has to be beratzain. The second one, it has to be biksav. If not, it doesn't work. Gimel, la. You see what he does? The first word, guys, that he brings in is the words that are pasuk, right? So la. What's the word la? Lishma. The get has to be written in the name of the isha. Melamed shetzarich sheyeh get nichtav lishma, her name, ulishmai, his name, and one more thing, l'shem gerushin. It has to be for the purpose of gerushin. It can't be that you're learning something. Umina shakasav tzarich sheyeh Yisrael gadol bendas, and from memela it has to be written by a gadol who's a bendas. Lafuki akam eved cheresh sheitav v'katan the elu lo yichtel lishma. They can't write it lishma. So 3 dinim. The din from the words of be'inav birt sainai, from the word v'kasav only through a get and not any other means. The word law, the get has to be written lishma, l'shem the woman, l'shem the man, and l'shem gerushin. And the memela, we can understand that it has to be written by a person who can fulfill those entities. Valid. Sefer krisis. The pasuk says sefer krisis. Sheyeh mesuper shem sham devarim me'at gerushin. Shekarsim beino leveina. What does that mean? It has to be a total cutting. There is no connection after this get is given. It has to be severed completely, the relationship. If a man would say to a woman, you're divorced from me, right? You're divorced from me and you can marry anyone else except you can't marry Harry. So she's still connected. The relationship that stopping to marrying Harry is a connection. That connection is not a sefer krisis. You don't have a complete chorus. You don't have a complete separation. I wonder with severance, right? That's severance pay. Okay, you're not cutting completely. Again, sefer krisis, the word krisis, it has to be completely. This is called shir beget. This is the latter part of the Masechta, right? But this is an overview of the Masechta. It's like the 9th parak. There can't be a shir beget. You can't leave over anything. You can't leave over anything. So that's the 4th thing. The 5th thing, v'nasan. When the word says v'nasan, milamed sheyitneu habal oishlucha. It has to be given by the baal and the shliach, v'lo sheticheu hi mimenu, and not that she picks it up. It has to be v'nasna. He gives rather than mat that she takes. If he puts the get on the floor and she picks it up, it's not a good get because there's no nesina. That would passel. So it's amazing how every pasuk, every little entity, it can go ahead and affect. Again, creating a scenario. She thinks she's divorced, chas v'shalom, and she's not. And the second marriage, you just created mamzeyus b'klal Yisrael. Number 6. Biyada. It says v'nasan biyada. Malamed she'ena miskareshes at she'inasin. I get biyada either in her hand, or biyad shlucha or her shliach's hand, or bechatzeira or her chatzir. This is again the end of the Masechta, the 8th parak. Shekulon ki yada mamish, which is all considered yada mamish. So again, we're going through the pasuk one by one. Each part of the pasuk teaching us a different din. Number Zayin, the 7th. V'shulcha mi beisai. V'shulcha teaches me Malamed sheya inyan hamasuper beget, that shehu mishalech esa. In the get, it has to say he's sending her away. The get has to say he's sending her away. Kegoin hariat mishuleches oimigoreshes mimeni. It says in the get you are sent away or driven away from me, or hariat muteres l'chaladam, you're permitted to marry any man. Avaloi sheyichtei ve'inyan sheyishalech atzmo mimena. But not that he has to send her away, not that he's sending himself away from her. He's going, Eini bailech, I'm not your husband anymore. It has to be the point has to be the woman being sent away versus the husband sending himself away. Oi, Eini isheich, I'm no longer your husband. Uchedaimo, anything that's similar to that, or Hariyat bas chayrin, you're a free woman. The kulan ain't a lashon shluach. It's not a lashon sending away. Yafiran mehacha shetia bastas. She has to be a bastas when he gives it to her. Like katana or shaita. Why? Because if you give it to a katana shaita, shemishalcha v'chayzeres. You know what can happen? You could send her away, and you know what happened? She may come back. These again all things that the Raisa would be problematic. Number 8, it says V'shulcha davar v'kasav. Okay, again, what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, now the word v'davar v'kasav are next to each other. So we're going back. We went v'shulcha mi beisai. Now we're going back to the words v'davar and the word v'kasav, as I'm showing you on the screen. Okay. Now what's v'davar v'kasav? Yalfina meha davar davar mimamin. We learn how to gezer shava the word davar to al pishnai meidim yakim davar by money. Ichsib money al pishnai meidim yakim davar. Hachanami beget sarach beis edim bisira eitzel nesinas haget. So from the word davar, just like by a davar mammon you need 2, so to by get you need 2. However, guys, by get is a little different. By get, edei mesira. You don't. The get is not made by the edei chasima. The get is made by the edei mesira. I will explain in a second. The kasav, next column, with the kaimlon edei mesira karti. That what? Edei mesira karti. Okay, what does that mean? So, if you have a star, you have a bank loan. You want to go ahead and borrow money. So your friend says, "Great, I'll lend you money. I'm a fine fellow Jew. What's the interest rate?" He goes, "I'm a Jew. I can't even charge ribbis." Okay, well, how much are you going to give me? I said, "I'll give you $50,000." The Eidim, when they sign on that, right? When they sign on that, they're just proof that you gave the loan. If you sell a house, whatever, usually a star is a star raya, the Eidim do not go ahead and they don't create the business transaction. They just go ahead and verify that it took place. The Eidim said you owe money. The Eidim said you sold a house. Good. By get, it's not that the get does the job and the Eidim are proof that they did the job, because it says the chasav, right? That the Eidim Mesira, you need the Eidim, they go ahead. Without Eidim, you could have a Lishma get written. It was written totally Lishma. It was given by the husband. It was received by the Isha. But if there are no Eidim to that, then it's not a good get. If you have a business transaction, it's a good business transaction. You don't have a right to it, right? If I give you the loan, if I sell you the house, and I don't have the transaction's done, I may not have a right with Eidim. By get, the Eidim are integral parts of the whole process. And those Eidim that you would think were the Eidim that are written on a star, in fact, we're going to see it's Eidim Mesira. It's Eidim who are there when the get is given over to the woman. Okay, that's Eidim Mesira. Eidim Mesira Karti, Eidim Mesira make the cut. The Chasav and Nasan, the pasuk says again, the Chasav la Sefer Kisav and Nasan biyada. It says the Chasav and Nasan. Ha'enu miskareshes rak beget sheim chusamaisa ben kasivel in a sina. When it says the Chasav and Nasan, means there's 2 actions, guys. It's written and it's given, as opposed to an action taking place in between. So, for example, if you'd write a get on the horn of a cow, and you give over the whole cow, she's divorced. You wrote the get and you gave it over. If you wrote the get on the horn of a cow, you cut it off the horn and then gave her the horn, she would not be divorced, because you had one action in between the writing and the giving. You had the ketzitza, you had the cutting of the horn. The chasav v'nasan, it has to be, again, without some action taking place in the middle. The mela, if you would write a get on something that is mechuber to the ground, the Gemara is going to be a case of an alei zayis. If you write it on an olive branch while it's connected, it's not a good get, because you wrote it. She's going to have to cut it and then give it. So the act of cutting, going ahead and coming in the middle.
Give her the sutter. You give her the field.
If you give her the whole field, so l'chayr should be divorced. Okay, as long as you don't have in the middle, you don't have a transaction in the middle. That's v'chasav v'nasan. And finally, yud krisis v'nasan. Ha'enim megareshes at sheyitin lahaget b'toyres gerishin v'inasan lo b'toyres ashtar chayiv v'mezuzah chedayma. She has to know she's getting a get. You can't fool her. You can't give her a piece of paper and say surprise, right? Surprise. You can't do that. So kol elu hayud dvarim psulim edaraisa samiskareshes beget kazeh ki eshish ish gemura. She's a full-fledged eshish ish, and Shainis says, boy, Tate say the one who marries her has to go out. Vlad mamzer, and the child born from that second union would be a mamzer because she was never divorced from her first husband. The mamzer deraisa. It's get me a sheni midevrayim. You need a get from the second midevrayim. Only midrabanan because she never was married to the second one. That's only the rabbanan. She needed to get me a Torah alma to marry to the world. The shneyim should be also to the first husband and the second husband. The yesh la kol din eshes ish sheshama shama shabayla meis v'nisas v'yakach ba bayla. She has the same din of a woman who got married, her husband died, got married, and the first husband shows up. So these are all. This is the hakdama to the Masechta of Gitin. This gives us an overview of Gitin, of how integral it's part that that the man gets married and he divorces a woman. Sefer Krisis, the Shema. These are all integral parts of the Masechta. Right? I just had Masechta Saita, right? Now the Masechta begins with what you all know from being in yeshiva. Everyone's seen this, but it's a unique din. It's a unique din. That's why I'm spending more time on the overview rather than the unique din that transpires in the Mishnah. Now, as a hakdamah to this, there's a man can send a shliach to bring the get. That's called a shliach lahalacha. Then a woman could go ahead and make a shliach to mekabel a get. That's a shliach lekabala. It's a shliach kabbalah. So we begin our Masechta. We wish everyone a lot of tzlacha. We should be zeicha. We're starting our fifth time at Chav Zayin Iyar, right? It's Iyar Tav Shin Pei Gimel. Yeah, Tav Shin Pei Gimel. We should be zeicha to finish Rabbi start in good health with hatzlacha and brios and everyone should steig in Yer Shemayim. Hamevi get me Medina Sayam. Sarach Shayam B'Fani Nichtab B'Fani Nechtam. So who's bringing the get? A shliach bringing the get from where? From Medina Sayam. Where is Medina Sayam? Says Rashi. Kol Chutz La'aretz Karli Medina Sayam. All Chutz La'aretz is called Medina Sayam. Bar mi Bavel, with the exception of Bavel. Bavel would not be considered Medina Sayam. So according to this, if you bring a get from Bavel, you would not have to say Mufani Nichtab and Mufani Nechtab. What does that mean? You bring a get, the shliach brings a get and says, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. That's what he has to do. It says Rashi, Tzarech HaShliach HaMevio, the shliach that brings it, Loimar, Mufani Nichtab, Mufani Nechtab, the time Mefarish B'Gemara, the shliach Zeh HaBal Asehu Shliach Leilaka. And the shliach was made by the Baal of Shliach Leilaka. And Gamliel Loimer, Afa Mevi Min HaRekem U'Min HaCheger. There's a place Kadesh Barnea is Rekem v'Cheger. We're going to see the Chiddush in the Gemara. Even if you bring from Rekem v'Cheger, you would have to say b'Fani Nichtab b'Fani Nechtam. That Eliezer Omer, Afilim Kfar Ludim LeLud. Even Kfar Ludim, which is Chutz La'aretz, LeLud, which is in Eretz Yisrael, it's right next to it. They're close by. Nonetheless, you're going to have to say b'Fani Nichtam b'Fani Nechtam. And finally, v'Chacham Maimim Ein it Tzarech Shiyam b'Fani Nichtam b'Fani Nechtam Ela Hamevi Mimedinas Hayam. And if in Moilech, if you're bringing a get from Eretz Yisrael to Medina Sayam, when you get to Medina Sayam, you would have to say B'fanei Nichtam, B'fanei Nechtam. After the word Moilech, put a period, guys. Okay, so we have to see what is the. We have three shittas. We have the Tanakama that if you bring them from Chutz La'aretz, we have Rabbi Gamliel feel from Rekem v'Cheger. We have Rabbi Eliezer feeling Kfar Lud and Lud, and we have the Chachamim apparently saying the exact same thing as the Tanakama. If you're bringing out from Chutz La'aretz, and maybe you're bringing from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, the Gemara, of course, is going to ask, why does the Chachamim different than the Tanakama? What's the Chachamim different than the Tanakama? Now, where else would you have to say B'fanei Nichtam, B'fanei Nechtam? Maybe min Medina leMedina, min Medina Sayam, Tzarech Shayam, B'fanei Nichtam, B'fanei Nechtam. Let's say Medina Sayam, you're outside of Eretz Yisrael, and you go from one Medina to another Medina outside of Eretz Yisrael. Over there also, you would have to say B'fanei Nichtam, B'fanei Nechtam. Even there, you would have to say that. The Rashi says there was a city, they were makbid on each other. There's a city that they were makbid on each other. They're very they were, I guess, West Berlin, Germany, guys, West Berlin, East Berlin, like that. That would be me. You had communists and not communists. They're knocking each other. If you bring a get from one to the other, you'd have to say b'fanei nichtav u'b'fanei nechtam. If you the Omer, what's the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael? In other words, when we say Mashmin Eretz Yisrael, you do not have to say b'fanei nichtav u'b'fanei nechtam. What are the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael? It says Rabbi Yehuda says Mei Rekem leMizrach. The east of Eretz Yisrael is from the town of Rekem and going east, and Rekem is considered part of Chutz La'aretz. Rashi says, "Rekem asmais nidonis k'mizrach ha'olam v'loy Eretz Yisrael." Considered Rekem itself is considered Chutz La'aretz, and it's not considered like what, like Eretz Yisrael. And you'd have to say b'fanei nechtav for Rekem k'mizrach. May Ashkelon leDaroim, Ashkelon in the south, the Ashkelon kedarim, and Ashkelon would be considered part of the south vis-a-vis this din. May Akko leTzafoin, Akko in the north. The Akko Ketzafon, and Akko has the din of the north. So these are the boundaries. Notice you're not getting the western boundary, because the western boundary of Eretz Yisrael is the Yam HaGadol, what we know as the Mediterranean Sea. We know as the Mediterranean Sea. So you only get Ashkelon in the south, Rekem in Mizrach, and Akko in the north. The Meir Omer, Akko Eretz Yisrael. Again, he disagrees. He says Akko would have a din of Eretz Yisrael in Yigin, and you would not have to say Fanei Nichtav, Fanei Nechtam. So I maybe get Eretz Yisrael. If someone brings again Eretz Yisrael itself to another place in Eretz Yisrael, Ein Etzarach Sheyom Fanei Nichtav, Fanei Nechtam. Now, V'im Yeshulav Oyrim, that Rashi does not have the V'im. Rashi says Im. Yeshulav Oyrim. If you have Oyrim, Yiskayim B'chaysamav, you should go ahead rather substantiate it with its signatures. Okay, what is the Oyrim? What does that mean? Look at the last Rashi on the page. Yiskayim B'chaysamav. V'im Ye'idu Edim Al Chasimis Yidehem. Im Yeshulav Oyrim, the one before, guys. Im Yeshulav Oyrim, She'abal Ma'arer Shu Mezuyef. The Baal is tining that this get is a forgery. The Baal is tining that this get is a forgery. If so, he says it's not a good get. Yeah, I guess it has to be after she received it already, because if it's before, he can be mevatel the get before it gets there, right? The Perek HaShaleach before Perek. But let's say she received the get. He wants to say that this get is a forgery. So what would you do? You authenticate it with its signatures. Now, how would you authenticate a get? If the Eidim would go ahead and they would testify on their own signatures, that's one way. Or other Eidim go ahead and they would substantiate it, then kosher, the get would be kosher. It would not be a forgery. So two cases, either the Eidim themselves or other Eidim testifying on these Eidim signatures. Well, not really a notary. A notary means that in front of me, right? Well, the question is, why don't bring the question of a notary? Then ain't a love oyrim. If there's no oyrim, mistama kasha, dabaki and lishma, because the experts, like in the law lishma, they're experts on lishma. The Eidim Mitzuyim Tamid L'Kaimai, and Eidim are found all the time. To the meaning of Gemara, but they didn't. Now, tell you very, very story. I should get it on tape for posterity. It's a nice story. I think this story takes place about 50 years ago. I knew nothing. I was dodging the draft, and I had to. I decided I want to learn. So the first Masechta I opened up was Gitin. I was in yeshiva. I was learning Gitin. I didn't know anything from anything. My brother goes to Eretz Yisrael. He's learning by Rav Gusman, Yeshiva, that's how. And he sends me a Gavaldik Pasha. It says if you have Oyrim, if the Baal says that it's Mezuyif, you go ahead and you authenticate it. What's the two ways they give for authentication? Either the Eidim themselves testify, or other Eidim testify that these are these people. We've gone through Shas quite a bit. We've seen another way to authenticate. If you had a shtar that went through Bezdin wrote a handpick on it, an authorization that these Eidim came in front of us, Hani Tlas, 2 or 3 Eidim, and they authenticated their signatures. And then if you would take that shtar and compare it to, why don't you go ahead and, so why didn't Rashi bring that? That's a legal way of authenticating a shtar. Anyway, so my brother sends me, he sends me, why did only these two, there's 3 ways. Do I know this third way, which I explained to you now? Of course I don't. So I go to, it's on Yisrael Remsen, Rav Asher Zimman, Zechat Tzaddik Kodesh Baruch is the Rav, and there was a Rav there. There was a rabbi, a young rabbi, who used to say a Gemara share in between in between for the Balabatim, he gave him Gemara share. So I went over to the rabbi and I said, is it possible? I said, why does Rashi only bring these two? There's three ways to it. There's other ways to authenticate. Because what are the other ways? I said, I don't know. So I just asked the question because, I wanted to have a conversation with the rabbi. So I asked him the question. Anyway, I went home. I'm sitting there at supper. And lo and behold, the rabbi shows up at the door and he says, the third way to authenticate it. And then he taught two more ways. And he says, it's a great question. I don't know the answer to the question. Okay, anyway, turns out the rabbi's name was David Cohn. You might have heard of him.
Wow.
Right? You might have heard of him. So every time I see Reb David, he says, Gitin Beis Amid Aleph Kasha. Beis Amid Aleph Kasha. I'm associated with the Kasha. Anyway, here's the text of the Kasha, guys. The only two ways the Araisa of authenticating is when I've got to say this. So the Rashi brought the two ways that are the Araisa, either the Eidim themselves or other Eidim testifying. Using a handpick from a Bezdin would be a good way, but it would only be the Rabbanan in nature, would not be what the Araisa. So anyway, I did answer that. I gave him the answer years later. It's very, very cute. So this anytime he sees me, he goes, Gitin Beis Amid Aleph, 50 years later. That's yeah. Oh, Kenny likes the story. Okay, next thing, Kenny, say Beis, next time say Gitin Beis Amid Aleph, and he's going to say, oh, I know. Okay, says that. Now, so let's go with it then, guys. Is machlokes exactly like where you have to say b'fanei nechtam, but everyone seems to agree if it's called chutz la'aretz and you go to Eretz Yisrael, you have to say b'fanei nechtam. If the aid does not say it, it's not a good shlichus, and therefore we won't accept the get. What's the reason? What are you worried about? What are you worried about? And this is tremendous. Two very famous opinions. This is a classic Gemara. Two famous opinions. My timer, Rabbi says, the fisha ain't beki and lishma. Rashi says, you know what? In chutz la'aretz, they're not experts in lishma. They're not experts in lishma. We all are. We know Rao. The chutz of law say for thesis. We went through Hakdama law. It's got to be written lishma, l'shem the man, l'shem the woman, l'shem gerushin. We just saw the Hakdama to Eretz Yisrael, so we know it has to be written lishma. In chutz la'aretz, they're not experts in lishma. So now, by saying b'fanei nechtam, how is that helping, guys? So let's see the top Rashi. How is that helping? L'fi she'en b'ki lishma. Ein b'nei medinas hayam b'nei Torah. B'nei medinas hayam are not b'nei Torah. Ve'ein yoidim shetzarech lichter v'get l'shem ha'isha. And they don't know that the get has to be written l'shem ha'isha. In addition, l'shem ha'ish, l'shem gerushin. Ukrok siv, what does the pasuk say? V'chasav law. The pasuk says v'chasav law sefer krisis. Law, the hainu l'shma. So they're not experts. Okay, very good. So how does saying b'fanei nechtam help? Says Rashi, Hilkach. Oima shliach b'fanei nechtam. The shliach says, in front of me was written, in front of me was signed. Umemele shalina lei. And what are we going to do? We're going to ask him, im nichtav l'shma, who oima in. So by saying b'fanei nechtam, it's an opening statement to lead to the question. Oh, you were there where it was written? Was it written l'shma? And I'll say, yeah, of course. So what's the obvious question? So why don't you say b'fanei nechtam l'shma? Just say b'fanei nechtam l'shma. Ulekamei mefarish, my time le'yatzrichu nami l'mei l'shma. Wait, you should have to say what? B'fanei nechtam l'shma, since that's the main purpose. Now, guys, why do you have to say b'fanei nechtam at all? Why should, if the whole purpose is to ksiva l'shma, so why do you say b'fanei nechtam? The Gemara will deal with that also. So that's the Shitas Rashi. That's the Shitas Rashi. Let's see Taisvis. L'fishein b'kiyan l'shma. In Toimar, Maishna l'shma, the ein b'kiyan mishar halachas Gitin, kigayin mechuba, v'shinoi shmayu shma, v'nichta b'yoyim, v'nechtam b'layla. We know there's many things that can mess up a get. For example, if the get was written on something that was attached, or if you changed her name and his name, or it was written during the day and signed at night. In other words, it's not, l'shma is not the only possible problem in a get. There are multiple problems in a get. So why are you worried about l'shma more than anything else? Great kasha. Okay, the Mefarish Rabbeinu Tam, let's skip down, guys. Mefarish Rabbeinu Tam, the Bechol Hilchas Gitin B'kiyan, El Dahak Drosha, the V'kasav Lo L'shma, ain't a nearest lam ikka drasha, the ain't bekian, right? The perish ain't chayshish in the drasha the lishma. What does that mean? That the other things were more accepted. The chasav lo lishma seemed to be a shvacha drasha, and therefore, since it was shvacha drasha, they didn't help from it so much. And since the chayshish the drasha, the ain't a chayshish in the drasha lishma, so they're not chayshish. It wasn't lishma, and therefore what? And therefore what? They went ahead and required you to say b'fanei nechel lishma. Now, the other pirush akunchis the memela shalin aloi he had the shma vayim in einera. Doesn't say anywhere that you have to ask him. In other words, after he says b'fanei nechtam, sahu. It doesn't say anywhere you have to ask him anything. According to Rashi, it's an opening line to lead to a conversation. But the Gemara never goes ahead as Maramis to that conversation. So Fred Taisvis, like Rashi, b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam what? It doesn't say any what anywhere. It doesn't say that. So what does Taisvis say? And for Taisvis, Mama ain't the stamel lishma kamasid. When he says b'fanei nichtav, he is testifying it was the shma. The pirish b'kunchos nami b'sama. So machloikas Rashi and Taisvis, guys, what exactly is the shma? In other words, according to Rashi, you say b'fanei nichtav, and they'll ask you the shma. According to Taisvis, and you say b'fanei nichtav, what are you saying? And I'm testifying that was the shma. It's like a shtickle edus over here, which we're going to get into. Okay, that's machlokes Rashi and Taisus. Okay, while the shma was more of a vague, it was more of a vague drasha that was accepted. The other ones are more acceptable, and therefore this was vague. So very shmak. So says Rabbi, what's the reason you have to say in front of me? It was written in front of me, a sign because of the din of the shma. Rabbi says no. The fishain edim mitzuyim the kaimai. Because there are no edim mitzuyim that are around the kaimai to mekayim it. In other words, so say b'fanei nichtav. So why does b'fanei nichtav help? Because I'm testifying that in front of me it was written, and you don't have to worry. In other words, I'm saying it's not a forgery. He's total aidus, not an aid. I'm being testified. Why? Because it's tough to find aid. You can't find them. In other words, so he's the aid. Since it's tough to find aid, he's the aid. He's the aid. So like the way Rashi explained it, it's not anything like God to say this so much. Like Taisvis, it is something about God to say this, and like Rava, everyone holds this. I got to say this, right? The Fishadim Mitzvah, the Kaimai says Rashi, guys, ain't what is Fishadim Mitzvah? The Kaimai Rashi says ain't Shayaris Mitzuyas Misham Lakan. The caravans are not found from there to here. Shem Yavay Abal v'Ya'arer. If the Baal would go ahead and show up and say like a saftiv, I didn't write it. Shayadim Mitzuyim Lahakich. We don't have Edim available to recognize their signature. So we believe the shliach. Well, come on, parach bein l'rabba libaytrei. In other words, guys, if this is din and edus, you should need what? You should need two, not one. You should need two and not one. Good. So again, nachiba. Funny nechta says Rabba l'shma. What does the shma mean? You say funny nechtav and Rashi. You'll ask him the shma. Taisus no, that's considered like that to say the shma. Or else, you know what? Edom not mitzui l'kaimoi. So if to avoid the Baal going ahead and be ma'arer, right? He's an aid. He's testifying that what? That it's a good get. It's not mezuyah. Now, my binayu, what's the difference between both of them? You have a svara, there has to be an afkamina. It can be nayu, daisuya betray. Guys, two people bring the get. Two people. He points two shluchim. So let's go through it. He points two shluchim to bring the get. Like Rabba, who says, because they're not beki and lishma, would you have to say b'fanei nechtam? Yeah. Absolutely, right? No matter 100 people come, you have to say b'fanei nechtam. Loi rava, it's a din and rad in edus, right? You have edus. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say anything. The chiddush of b'fanei nechtam is the one is believed. We're going to get that in a second, right? Echad. So here, that's my nafkamina, one nafkamina. What's the nafkamina? Two people bring it. Like Rabba Lishma, you would have to say b'fanei nichtav. Like Rava, that are you worried about edis? That I'm the kaimo here. You edin. You don't have to worry. You don't have to say b'fanei nichtav. That's the first difference. Second difference: inami medina lemedina be'eretz Yisrael. From one Medina to another Medina in Eretz Yisrael. So now you're in Eretz Yisrael. What does that mean? You're experts in Lishma. you're experts in Lishma. Once everything takes place in Eretz Yisrael like Rabbah, you would not have to say b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam. But since you were from one Medina to another Medina in Eretz Yisrael, you wouldn't have Edis Shayaris going back and forth. Like Rava, you would need what? To say b'fanei nechtam, b'fanei nechtam. So the first lashon, like Rava, you wouldn't have to say. Like the second lashon, like Rava, you would have to say. Inami, Medina, but Medina Sayam, the same Medina Sayam. Since it's chutz la'aretz, they're not experts in Lishma. Like Rabbi, you'd have to say. Like Rava, since it's the same Medina, you would not have to say. So three nafkaminas. They're in the same Medina. Read the Gemara. Ula Rabba, we'll see Rabba soon also. Ula Rabba, the Amar Lefi Shein B'Kiyin Lishma, Liboy Trey, Midi Dehavi Akol Edi Sheber Torah. Right? In other words, according to Rabba says Lishma. You want to testify that it was written Lishma. Why is one person believe? You need two. And for the Gemara, Eid Echad Neman Bisurim. Eid Echad is believe Bisurim. So what does that mean? Guys, what does that mean? And Eid Echad Neman Bisurim. How can I eat in Chaim Lax's house? What? Because I trust what? You trust the wife. What? How's a man mutter to his wife if she's in nida? Trust the wife. Now that's called what? Nemanis. That's called Nemanis. In fact, Tosfos says the source for Eid Echad Neman is nida. By nida, the pasuk min Torah, you have a pasuk. I was going to get into this, but I see time is got late early. So it says over here. What's the source? The source is neither. It says the sofra law, and she will count law le'atzma. She's counting to herself. So, man, if a woman says hayrani after she's been in neither, she's believed. Eidachan neman bisurim. Shkita eidachan neman bisurim. So, in other words, we know eidachan neman bisurim. So over here also, you have the isur of Eishes Ish. 1/8 is believed to go ahead and say that she's no longer an Eishes Ish because she received the get. That's the Gemara's teretz. Right, the Gemara Kasha. When do we say Eidachan Neman Bisurim? Kigain Katicha Safik Shel Chelev Safik Shel Shumin. You have a piece of meat in front of you. You do not know the status of this meat. It could be kosher. It could not be kosher. But one is believed to say it's kosher. You know why? The law is Chazek Isura because you don't have an established Issa. We spoke about Chazakas many times, right? You don't know what this is. This person is establishing what it is. We don't know what it is. He's believed to say it's kosher b'yosha. He's believed to say it's kosher b'yosha. He's believed to say that. Good. Now, what about Eishes Ish? Aval hacha the Chazik Yisura. You have this of Eishes Ish. The Eishes Ish habi davar sheba erva. They ain't davar sheba pachas mishnayim. I need this also Chazik Yisura. What's the answer? Not always. It goes off. After 7 days, midaraisa goes off, right? So it goes off. In other words, Eishes is not leaving unless you know something, right? Right? Right. But that it's place of the kasha. So if the source for Eid Echad is nida is Eichid. It's Chazik Yisura. And what's the answer? No, it's not. It's not a Chazik Yisura because this is going to go away. Very geschmack. But this is not going away.
She tells you that. How do you know that she's from in the first place?
Oh, Pesha Pesha. There's right on that, right? When you say Pesha also, yeah, there's right on that. I saw. I didn't go through it, but I saw on it. Anyway, l'chala pachas. Right now we have a kasha. One person should be able to do the job. Ain't davar sheba erva pachas mishnayim. You have a schasik sud. You can't give me eidach and them misurin. It's not going to work. And for the Gemara, I'll tell you the truth. Roiv b'kiyan hain. Most people are Bekiyan. Now you have a most. Now, once you have a most, you don't even need Adis. You go after Roiv. You don't go after Roiv. Guys, Suffolk, whether the Shema or not, you go after Roiv, right? So you don't need Adis. And even Reb Meir, who we know, in this Chayish Lamiyuta, we said that a cotton can't do Yibum. A katana, maybe Shemanim islandist of katana. Why? Roiv said Roiv are not islandist. Roiv are not Srisim. And Reb Meir says you can't have a katana do Yibum or katana, right? Why? That he would agree over here, Reb Meir. Why? Because Stam Sifri Dedaini, most scribes that are associated with the Bezdin, Migma Gemiri. They are what? They are They are learned. They know the din of Lishma. So you have a roiv, and such a strong roiv that even Reb Meir with Chayish Lamayuta would go after this roiv. So guys, you don't need Eidus at all. Since it's a roiv, you don't need Eidus at all. The Rabbanan hu the Atzrich, and it's the Rabbanan who require it. We'll see why in a second. And Rabbanan came up with this requirement. Okay, now if the Rabbanan came up with the requirement, they made the rules, correct? And Hacha Mishumi Guna Ikilu Barabanan. And here, because you're worried that if the get you have on the get, you're gonna have a Shaila Lishma, not you don't have two, this, that, next thing, the woman may go ahead and remain an Aguna. Therefore, no one is believed to say, wow, and you're good. So, for the Gemara Kasha, you should need two. It's Eidus, and for the Gemara, no. This is a Chashad Ba'alma. Roiv, it's a very strong Roiv. Azash Starker Roiv, that what even Reb Meir would be Moida, and it's Chashash Rabbanim. We'll see in a second what the Chashash is, and therefore we conclude with our teretz, since the Rabbanim the one who require it, one does the job. And why would they make why one does the job? Because of Iguna. Now, what are they worried about, guys? What are they worried about, right? Let's see Rashi. What are they worried about? It says Rashi, Rabbanan hu de'atzrichu l'mechish l'nilsa. It's the Rabbanan are worried. The Rabbanan are worried. Right? Why are the Rabbanan worried about? Mishum de'ikah de'ashkech kasav v'oimed. A guy will find a get that is written already. Kigoin, shenichta l'shem echad mebnei Irai. He has written for one of the people in the city, Sheshmai Kishmai, who has his same name, Ushma Kishma. I remember the first time he did this, there was a guy in Shir said, my name is Benjamin, and my wife's name is Sarah. And there was another guy in Shir whose wife's name was Benjamin, and his was Sarah. And they both had twin boys, which made it even stranger. And they lived in the same city. So don't think it's such a strange thing. Don't think it's such a strange thing. Benji and Dr. Ben.
I guess they didn't rip up the get back then.
Huh?
I guess they didn't rip up the get back then.
Again, it could be threw it out. It was never used. Yankle wasn't used. It was written. It wasn't used. Yeah, it wasn't used, right? And he found the get. So what's the chshad, says Rashi? That maybe, as I might, maybe you're going to find the get that what? Right? V'nimlach mulagarish, and the guy had charata and he didn't divorce it and use it, right? So l'chayra, that's what you're worried about. That's what Rashi says. And Rabbanim, because of this far-fetched concern, they case, one does the job. Right, that's Rashi. Let's see Taisus. Let's go to the end of Taisus. Go to the end. Let's go to the bottom line. Gimel Amid Aleph. First Taisus, about 6 lines up. Boimeri. Had the atzich rabbanon hacha hainu kadesh lo ya'ara habal. It's to stop the bal from complaining. The yomer shekosva seifer kadei l'islamid. That the seifer wrote it for the purpose of not for gerushin, but the purpose of teaching others how to write a get. But who hichnam alav edim shuloi hoya baki l'shma, and therefore, since it wasn't the gerushin, he put edim. He signed edim that one on l'shma. So machlekes Rashi and Taisus what the chshad is. According to Rashi, chshad maybe you're going to find the get that what was used for a person the same name. According to Taisus, maybe you're going to find the get that wasn't written the same gerushin. Okay, yes, let's discuss riba. We began the Masechta. We went through 10 isur of deraisa that would make the get not a good get, which would create havoc in marriage. Right, you'll see it when you chazir tonight. You'll go ahead and look it over, and then you'll funny nechtam mechutz la'aretz Eretz Yisrael machlokes Rabbi mishum l'shma l'fe'edim l'shma. According to Taisus, according to Rava, it's because you're worried about you need edim in case the Baal's ma'ara. You need edim to go ahead and substantiate it. We have 3 nafkaminas. The first nafkamina was what if you bring it in if brought by 2 people. According to Rabbi, you would still have to say it. According to Rabbi, you would not have to say it, or it's brought in Medina Sayyam. Of course, Medina Sayyam is the same Medina. According to Rabbi, you still have to say it. According to Rabbi, you would not have to say it, or it's brought from Eretz Yisrael in 2 Medinas in Eretz Yisrael. According to Rabbi, you'd have to say. According to Rabbi, you would not have to say. And why was one believed over here? I l'charetz davar sheb erva vein davar shebach b'shnayim. Said that you're worried about the shema is a chashad ba'alma. According to Rashi, the chashad that maybe you can find an existing get with the same name of man and woman in the same city. According to Taisus, maybe it was the get was for not the purpose of getting the Islamic bar. Bez Hashem. Wish everyone a good Shabbos. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Yeah, tomorrow morning, probably 9:15 that area. No, I'm going to be up. Yeah.
You're doing share tomorrow in the morning?
In the morning, yes. Tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning. Look at tomorrow morning. What time are you available?
5 o'clock.
Okay, so it's going to be on the tape. Okay, yeah,
Okay. All right.
Steve's pretty good, and it'll be on the tape, okay?
Yeah, Rabbi.
Thank you, great
I got it
to
done.
see you back. David,
Same
great
here.
to see you back.